Hey, welcome back to Gluten Free and Me. It's Jen. Before I begin the pizza rustica Easter pie recipe, which we're going to have for Christmas Day, I'd like to make an announcement. Many of us who eat a gluten-free diet have experienced some kind of pain in the body. And that's why we're choosing to go gluten-free, because let's be honest, if we could eat a regular pizza out at a pizzeria, we probably would do that. I wrote a book about my journey of pain and suffering to healing, and it's a very spiritual journey, and that's the reason why I actually just mentioned it here on this channel, is because many of you can relate. So at the end of the video will be my website, www.jenfiore.com. I also have dolifeinspired.com, which is my company as well, and you can buy the book there. It's on pre-sale right now until January 5th when it's released. So on to this recipe. I begin with I know my grandmother had the regular make your own pizza dough recipe, so obviously we're gluten-free, so we have to make our own pizza dough as well. It's just better that way than the store-bought. On our channel here, we do have the pizza recipe, but I can go through it really quickly so this video isn't too long. Inside here, I've doubled the recipe because I plan on making a spinach pie as well. So in here, the normal recipe calls for 2 cups of tapioca flour and 2 cups of white rice. I've doubled it, like I said, and that is what's inside here. In the regular recipe, we add 1 teaspoon of salt. I've got 2. And in the regular recipe, it calls for 3.5 teaspoons of xanthum gum. So I'm double that to be 7. Onto the wet ingredients. All right. We have our 3 tablespoons of Crisco or shortening, and I've doubled that in hot water, 1 cup of hot water. So I'm gonna let that sit. And you know, actually when I begin to make the pizza recipe, if this isn't melted to my satisfaction, I pop it in the microwave for an extra 30 seconds. So I really got a nice melted consistency. Inside of here, we have 2 tablespoons of dry active yeast and 1 tablespoon of sugar. And we have 1 cup of lukewarm water to get that yeast rising. Again, I've doubled that. The regular recipe calls for 4 egg whites, okay? So what I like to do before I get it on there is mix this flour up just a little bit, put it on the mixer and start adding. I always begin with my egg whites, then I go to my fat, my shortening, and then I move on to the yeast. And then we'll make that pizza rustica together. Because I like to experiment, I found glutinous rice flour and I knew I wanted to try it in this recipe. So I beat this for a minute on high like the recipe calls for, and it's beautiful. Let's take a look. See how beautiful and smooth that is? So I am going to continue to beat it with a little bit of extra rice flour, no more glutinous, I ran out of that, and just thicken that up and dry it out so my kneading process is not so difficult. This is perfect. I only added a little bit. The dough is not too sticky. It's gorgeous. So for another 30 seconds or so, and maybe 2 tablespoons of extra rice. Oh man, that's perfect. I can feel it gummy. It feels real gummy. Oh, I'm excited. I'm gonna let this sit here while I cut up the meat. And so this Rustica recipe calls for prosciutto and salami, Genoa salami, and it calls for mozzarella, and I think some Parmesan cheese too. Parmesan cheese, yep, and eggs. It is by no means fat-free, as some people like to call it, a fat bomb. So I asked the deli counter at the grocery store to cut me a nice thick slab, 1/4 pound of prosciutto and a 1/4 pound of the Genoa salami. I'm gonna cut them nice and thin, small, into little cubes, and I'm gonna mix that together with the Parmesan cheese, the mozzarella, and 4 eggs. I wanted to show you our mixture with our Parmesan cheese and our meats in here, and our 4 eggs. And I did not use part skim. This time I went full whole milk mozzarella. This is going to be so rich. What a fantastic pie. You could either have our quiche in the morning or you can have this meat pie on Christmas morning. I'm gonna get cracking on that dough. I'm gonna put this in the refrigerator after I mix it well and start rolling out the crust. This dough is beautiful. I am so excited. The consistency is perfect. It's airy, and it's gonna make a great pizza rustica. Here we go. A little bit underneath. I like to get this nice and thin so I don't have a horribly thick crust. You gotta be careful with this when you lift it up. So you wanna leave enough room on the end so that you could flap it over and make like a closed pie. So I think I might have enough room here. I also like to use these tools which help me with the pizza and the pie crust and such to lift it up. Because you know how things can stick to your surface. So I have these handy dandy contraptions. So I'm gonna lift it up a little bit, help myself out. You can also fold, okay? I'll do both. Lay it on here. Do the same and lift up and place it in my parchment lined tin from the grocery store because I'm gonna cook it at 350 for an hour. I'm gonna take a look at it. I'm sure it's gonna be beautiful. And then because it's not quite Christmas and this is going to be a Christmas Day thing, I'm going to put it in the freezer. I've got a little slit on the bottom I don't like. So what do you do when you don't like something? You Band-Aid it. So I put a little bit of dough on the bottom. I'm fine with that. Wet my little, put it on the bottom, patchwork. My mixture that I had cooling in the refrigerator while I let my dough sit, and that just made my dough even more fluffy. I took about a half hour of time to do other things, which I'll show you at the end. My spinach pie and a couple of Strombolis. Now closing it up. Cutting some of that excess dough off. I don't need all that. Got plenty in the middle here, and I like to just maybe wet my fingertips and seal that down. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. You can do an egg wash on top of this. Sometimes I like to just put a little olive oil, and since it's gonna cook for 350 for an hour, if it gets too brown, you know the old trick, cover it so it doesn't burn. Cover it with some parchment paper or some foil. It's beautiful. Make a little slit. Into the oven it goes. I had the extra dough that I said I doubled the batch, so I made my spinach pie. Nala. And I started on our Strombolis that are gonna also go in the freezer. This is the pizza rustica that's been cooling for about an hour. So I'm gonna flip it out. You know how most pies that use all that fat, there's gonna be a whole bunch underneath. So we wanna get it nice and cool. Let's crack it open. I remember, oh my goodness, and you cool it down and you slice it nice and thin and you serve it cooled. It's a beautiful pie. I'm gonna put this actually in the freezer for Christmas Day, but I wanted to show you all how beautiful this can be. I hope you enjoy your pizza rustica. The crust was wonderful and we used it for so many things, and it would be perfect as well with regular white rice flour. So don't you fret if you can't find the glutinous one. You're good with it, whatever you find, and enjoy your baking. Happy holidays.